Welcome to This Week in Washington for February the 6th, 2012. As you know from my notes and follow-up last week, the House of Representatives in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and in the Ways and Means Committee passed legislation that is clearly not in the best interest of community and public transportation. Specifically, we are very concerned, as are others, about the decision to remove transit from the traditional revenue that has been provided to us in the Highway Trust Fund. Instead of guaranteed revenue produced from the gas taxes that are collected by the federal government, we would be funded in a new way that would require Congress to set aside $40 billion at one time for the alternative transit account to make up for the difference that would be lost by transferring all of the gas tax revenue to highways only. Additionally, this $40 billion would not be enough to meet our needs, and it is anticipated that Congress would have to appropriate at least $2 billion in general revenue every year for the life of this bill to make up the difference. That means that we need not just $40 billion in general revenue, but we will need an additional $12 billion over 6 years, as envisioned by this bill, to make up the difference to maintain current services. There are good things in the House T&I bill, but the idea that we should, after a successful series of good reauthorizations, cast aside the way we provide for the stability that we enjoy in the program is hard to fathom in these difficult economic times. Sadly, this has become a partisan issue as opposed to the traditional bipartisan solutions that have been part of the public transportation and highway issues for many, many years. We regret deeply that the House Republicans have chosen to follow this path and to create within it the seeds of dissension not just for the Highway Trust Fund, but how we fund public transportation. Later today, we'll be releasing an updated version of FastMail, which will include ideas that we're going to ask people to do and work that we're going to ask them to undertake to undo what has been done in the House of Representatives. If you visit the front door of our website, you will see that we have already signed a letter with our friends at the National Association of Counties, National Association of Cities, APTA, and others, opposing this break with the tradition that has made our transit and highway programs strong. Others will be signing similar letters throughout the week, since the House has discussed taking this forward into the full House for voting next week. Secretary LaHood on Friday, a lifelong Republican, called this the worst transportation legislation he had ever seen. I think he's clearly right about that, as do many others. Sir Isaac Newton told us that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, and I certainly hope what the Secretary had to say Friday, as well as comments made by members of the Senate, as well as other members of the House of Representatives, that we will see the beginning of the action and reaction Sir Isaac promised us. We must reverse this decision and this proposed course of action. The reason I think that the House chose to do this really concerns the inability to raise revenue, which has been at the heart of why we have been concerned about this reauthorization for many years. To make up for the loss of revenue that's needed to maintain the highway program, they turn to the transit revenue to accomplish their goals. They know that in their bill, in both the T&I committee and in Ways and Means, that the proposals to raise additional funds are not likely to be successful. I find it hard to believe that Congress, after all these years, is going to allow energy exploration in the Arctic National Wildlife Reserve, having seen it defeated dozens of times, or do I see that there is much support for a massive allowance that would permit oil and gas companies to conduct fracking operations across the nation, or in the Pioneer bill that provides for massive, intrusive processing of oil tar sands as ways that this revenue will be gained. There is no other option if you want to pass a bill other than finding additional revenue. And the revenue that this partisan group of congressmen has decided on has been at our expense. There are some things, as I said, that are good in this bill, but there are also other negatives, including Congress in the House rejecting our proposals to provide community and public transit organizations greater flexibility in their use of their funds, especially in a financial emergency, that are all lumped together in the so-called Carnahan bill. Mr. Carnahan brought his amendments to the House floor, and the House leadership waited until 1:30 in the morning to call his amendment up when they knew two important Republicans would be absent, therefore defeating this attempt to provide the kind of flexibility we've been championing for our members in the transit industry for some time. These are all examples of things that shouldn't be true and do not share the common bipartisan balance that we have come to expect from Congress, whether it is run by Republicans or run by Democrats. As I said, there will be an issue of fast mail today to talk about things that can be done and to provide more intensive looking at what's taken place here. But we should keep in mind that this is a critical approach and an extremely negative one. And I have already called upon Congress in our letter, as I said, to be joined by others, that they must move back from this terrible decision and restore the bipartisan leadership for America's transit and highway programs that will be necessary to move the nation forward. It makes sense to build on the past, not to reject it and pretend that we haven't come a long way by using a bipartisan approach. Again, look forward to my follow-up messages, and we'll be looking to ask several of you to do some individual things with us in the next couple days. But be assured that we and others intend to stand against this, to reverse this decision, and to restore the balance we need for our nation's mobility future. Thanks, and I'll be in touch shortly. Goodbye for now.